During a live stream, Jungkook freezes as Jimin utters his name with a trembling voice, sparking rumors of suppressed tears and secrets beneath the surface. Jungkook? The name cracked like glass under pressure, quivering from Jimin's lips as millions watched, eyes locked, breath suspended, and then silence. Not the kind of silence that lingers after a joke or a tech glitch. This was a charged silence, so dense it vibrated. The live stream, until then filled with casual laughter and soft melodies, froze in a stillness that didn't feel accidental. Jungkook's fingers, which had just moments ago been strumming a familiar tune on his guitar, hung mid-air like a snapshot. His gaze dropped, not at the chat, not at the camera, but somewhere lower, inward, where no one could follow. The chat exploded. What just happened? Is he crying? Did Jimin say something wrong? Rewind. Listen to Jimin's voice. Reactions piled up faster than the stream could load. But neither of the two said anything. Jimin's screen, joining remotely from a dim-lit room in Busan, remained still. His expression flickered, barely a breath. But it was there, the tightening jaw, the way he blinked too long like holding something back. Then Jungkook exhaled. A shallow, quiet, almost imperceptible breath. He placed his guitar down with careful hands, as if it had suddenly become fragile. "Young, don't," he whispered. Not a plea, not an order, something raw. Jimin looked down, both hands out of frame, possibly gripping his sleeves, a habit fans had long noticed during stressful moments. His voice was barely audible, rough with unspoken weight. I had to. Whatever was being said wasn't meant for the world, but the world was there, watching, dissecting. This was supposed to be a reunion stream, a celebration of memories, music, the bond that never broke. But now, something invisible had cracked, and the audience felt it in their bones. Behind Jungkook, his studio was cast in warm hues, gold lighting, charcoal acoustic panels, a shelf of vinyl records. Nothing moved, but his body told a different story. Tension rolled off him in waves, his shoulders taut, his throat working like he was trying to swallow back everything he couldn't name. "Is it still live?" Jimin muttered. Jungkook didn't answer, but his eyes flicked briefly toward the screen, a silent confirmation. That was when the feed stuttered, glitched, returned. He leaned forward, lips near the mic. "I think. Let's stop here tonight." And then he was gone. The screen blinked to black. Within minutes, hashtags surged to global trends. Jungkook live silence. What did Jimin say? Protect Jungkook. Analysts, armchair psychologists, and fans dug into every frame, sound wave, and micro-expression. But no one knew what the silence truly meant. And beneath it all, something deeper stirred. What the world didn't know, what even Jungkook had buried so deep he sometimes forgot it was real, was the night 3 years ago. The night in Tokyo. The rain, the voicemail, and the promise they swore to keep buried. But secrets, like voices, have a way of trembling their way back to the surface, even in the quietest room. "Why didn't you stop the stream?" The door slammed behind Jimin as he entered the dim studio, the sound ricocheting against the acoustic walls. Jungkook didn't turn to face him. He stood by the window, the city lights casting sharp reflections across his tense silhouette. His fingers drummed absently against the glass, the only sign that he'd even heard the question. Jimin stepped forward, his voice laced with disbelief. "You knew it was live. You knew what would happen the moment I said your name like that." Jungkook finally turned, slow and deliberate. His eyes were shadowed, not with tiredness, but something else. Something buried deeper. "I didn't think you'd bring that up." "I didn't," Jimin snapped, hands clenched. "I didn't say a word about what happened. Your name came out and I couldn't stop the tremor." There was a pause, not of silence, but of unspeakable things pushing against their throats. "You knew exactly what your voice would do," Jungkook said, quieter now but sharper. "You always do." Jimin stared, wounded. "Is that really what you think of me? That I'm calculating enough to manipulate your breakdown for the sake of a moment? You're the one who showed up tonight after months of radio silence. And you're the one who ran." Jungkook flinched at the word. It hit too close, too true. Jimin's eyes flicked toward the guitar, still resting where Jungkook had set it down during the stream. "It was just a name," he said, softer now. "But we both know it wasn't just that." Silence stretched between them again. In the distance, a thunderstorm rolled low over the Han River, distant enough to sound cinematic. The tension in the room was not new. It had been there for years, dressed in friendship, masked by laughter, drowned in schedules. "You really want to talk about Tokyo now?" Jungkook asked. Jimin blinked. Jungkook took a step closer, voice rising. "Because that's what this is, right? You cracked tonight because you thought I forgot, that I moved on, or worse, lied about it all." Jimin didn't answer. His jaw clenched. He looked away. "You want honesty?" Jungkook laughed, dry and humorless. "You want the truth? Fine. I replay that night every time it rains. Every damn time." Jimin's breath hitched. "I hear your voice in that voicemail even when I sleep," Jungkook continued, his chest rising and falling faster. "The one you deleted from your phone, but I kept. You said you couldn't face what we did, but I kept it." "I know," Jimin whispered. Jungkook paused, disoriented. "What?" "I know you kept it," Jimin repeated, now trembling. "I listened to it. Last week, I found your backup drive." There was a pause so deep it threatened to split the room. "You broke into my files?" Jungkook asked, disbelieving. "I had to know if you remembered the truth, or if you'd rewritten it like I did." Jungkook stepped back, furious and stunned. "You had no right." "No," Jimin interrupted, voice cracking. "I had every right, because I was there too. I broke that night just as much as you did. You don't get to hoard the pain like it makes you noble." Jungkook's mouth opened, then closed. His voice, when it came, was a broken whisper. "You were the one who walked away, because you asked me to." The confession hung in the air like smoke. For the first time, the storm outside cracked, lightning flashing across the glass behind Jungkook's back. "That's not how I remember it," he said, quieter now. "Because you were drunk," Jimin said, stepping forward. "You barely remember falling asleep in my lap, while I held your hand and swore I wouldn't tell anyone. You asked me to go. You begged me not to make it worse. You were scared, and so was I." Jungkook sank into the couch, hands in his hair. "I thought I was protecting us," Jimin said, his voice raw. "I thought if I left, we could survive it. But we didn't," Jungkook murmured. "We just paused the collapse." The air was thick with everything they'd left unsaid. Years of staged smiles, postponed conversations, concerts that ended in forced hugs and empty hotel rooms. Jimin moved toward him, slowly, cautiously. The live stream was a mistake. Jungkook looked up. "No, it was the most honest we've been in years." They stared at each other, the old rhythm between them hesitating. Familiar, yet foreign now. "You said my name like you missed it," Jungkook said. "I did," Jimin replied. "I do." The confession was a fuse. Jungkook stood abruptly, walking toward the small bar tucked in the corner. He poured himself a glass of water, his hands trembling. "You can't say that now. Not after everything." "Why not now?" Jimin asked. "Because we're older? Because we've become professionals at pretending? Tell me honestly, do you ever wish we'd let it happen?" Jungkook didn't answer. "That night wasn't an accident," Jimin went on. "And it wasn't the alcohol. You kissed me because you meant it, and I kissed you back for the same reason." Jungkook turned, face open and raw. "But then we panicked. We ruined it." "Or maybe," Jimin said gently, "we just weren't ready." The thunderstorm was overhead now, loud and present. Jungkook sat back down, this time facing Jimin fully. "So what are we doing now? Trying again?" "I don't know," Jimin admitted. "But I'm tired of hiding, and I'm tired of wondering if you regret it." "I never did." Jungkook looked at him for a long time, eyes wet. "Then why did you run?" "Because I was in love with you," Jimin said. "And now?" Jungkook asked. "I never stopped." The room was still. Jungkook didn't move. Jimin stood there, eyes wide, vulnerable, bare. The studio buzzed with electricity, not just from the storm, but from everything breaking open between them. Then, Jungkook did something unexpected. He smiled. Not the practiced kind. Something small, cracked, but real. "You really chose the worst possible moment to confess that." Jimin exhaled a laugh, relief threading through the tension. "You mean during a global live stream with 10 million people watching?" Jungkook nodded, chuckling under his breath. "You're an idiot." "Maybe," Jimin said, stepping closer. "But I'm your idiot." There was a pause. Then Jungkook stood, face inches from Jimin's. "I'm still angry," he whispered. I know. I don't forgive you. Not fully. Not yet. I don't need you to. Just don't lie to yourself anymore. And with that, they stood there, the storm quieting outside, their shadows long against the wall. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't closure. It was something messier, real. Behind them, the forgotten stream flickered on a monitor someone had left running. The screen had long since gone to black, but a single line of text blinked in the corner. Live ended, but the story didn't. And somewhere out there, the world was still asking questions. But for now, inside that room, they finally stopped hiding from the answers. You never told me Taehyung knew. The words came like a cold slap, early, uninvited, before either of them had even touched their coffee. The cafe was quiet, too quiet for this kind of confrontation. The walls were a safe, sterile beige. The windows fogged slightly from the drizzle outside, and the table between them suddenly felt like a chasm. Jimin looked up slowly, his hand tightening around the ceramic mug. He didn't. Not back then, he said, voice steady but eyes avoiding Jungkook's. But I think he figured it out, before either of us wanted to admit it. Jungkook exhaled, sitting back in the booth like someone recoiling from heat. His hoodie clung to his damp shoulders, the aftermath of a stormwalk he didn't explain. And yet, he said with a small bitter smile, he's the one who texted me last night, not you. Jimin looked pained. What did he say? That he was sorry it happened this way, that you were hurting too, that I should hear your side. Jungkook's fingers tapped a restless rhythm on the edge of his glass. That's when I knew. You told him everything. I didn't. Jimin started, then caught himself. I didn't need to. He was there, Jungkook. He saw us unravel. Jungkook's throat tightened. So what? Now it's some shared trauma project between you two? Jimin's voice grew sharper. Don't do that. Don't act like I went to him to turn this into gossip. I didn't even tell him about Tokyo until a month ago. And even then, only because he asked if I'd ever come back from it. The words hung heavy. Jungkook leaned in, elbows on the table, eyes darker than Jimin had seen in a long time. Did you? Jimin didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and slid something across the table. Jungkook stared at the small, worn Polaroid rain-stained edges curled. A snapshot of the two of them under a vending machine's awning in Tokyo, both of them laughing, Jimin's head on Jungkook's shoulder. The photo wasn't posed. It was real. Candid. Alive. I kept this, Jimin said quietly. Even when I tried to forget everything else. Jungkook picked up the photo like it was made of glass. His hand trembled slightly. Why now, Jimin? Why are you trying now? Jimin's eyes didn't waver. Because this time, I'm not afraid of what it'll cost me. Jungkook's face hardened. Even if it costs you the group? A long silence. Then Jimin, jaw tight, whispered, the group was never what broke us. The silence was. The cafe's door opened with a chime, and both their eyes snapped to it instinctively. Just a couple coming in from the rain. But it broke the moment enough that Jungkook stood abruptly, pushing his chair back. I can't do this here. Jimin followed him outside, the rain turning to mist, their breath forming clouds between them. I know you're scared, Jimin said behind him. So am I. But running from this hasn't worked for either of us. Jungkook turned on him. Scared? Do you even remember what it was like after Tokyo? Do you remember what the press started speculating when we stopped sharing rooms? When we canceled that hotel concert? Do you know how many sleepless nights I spent deleting drafts of messages I wanted to send you just to ask if I mattered at all? Jimin's voice cracked. You mattered more than anyone. Then why did you stay silent when the rumors got brutal? Jungkook asked, eyes glistening. Why did you let them turn me into some obsessed mistake? I thought I was protecting you. No, you were protecting yourself. Jimin flinched as if struck. Then he nodded. Maybe I was, but I'm done with that now. Jungkook took a shaky breath, stepping back. You always say that, and every time I end up alone. There was a stillness between them, so sharp it cut into the wind. I didn't come here to beg, Jimin said at last. I came here to tell you I'm done pretending. You don't have to forgive me, but I had to say it. All of it. Jungkook's jaw clenched. Then, in a voice barely above the rain, he asked, Do you still love me? Yes, Jimin answered, like a fire that refused to go out. I never stopped. The words hit Jungkook like a blow to the chest. He looked away, then back again, his breath quick, the world suddenly too loud, then softly, painfully. "And if I said I still loved you too, what would you do?" "I'd wait," Jimin whispered, "for as long as it takes." The rain began to fall harder again, slicking their hair, drenching the Polaroid still in Jungkook's hand. He didn't move, but he didn't leave either. And that, for now, was enough. The press conference was a mistake. Jungkook stood behind the curtain of the auditorium, heart thundering so violently it felt like his ribs might split. The clamor of photographers, fans, and whispering executives beyond the stage was a living, breathing thing pounding like waves against thin wood. Behind him, a monitor flickered with a 10-second countdown and the BTS logo spinning slowly like a dying sun. Jimin was late. Not that anyone said it out loud, but the panic was beginning to swell in the air like smoke. A staff member muttered into her mic. Another glanced down the hallway toward the private entrance. And Namjoon, calm as ever but jaw stiff, glanced at Jungkook with a silent question. Jungkook didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was dry, mind rattling between what Jimin had said yesterday and what it might mean today. If he even showed up. "I never stopped," Jimin had said. Words Jungkook had waited years to hear. Words he had feared would undo everything he'd carefully glued back together. A buzzer sounded. 3 seconds. "Jungkook, you're on," someone said behind him. He stepped forward. The lights hit like gunshots, blinding, hot, relentless. He took his seat beside the others. Yoongi nodded to him gently. Taehyung didn't look at him at all. Hobie offered a thin smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The conference began. They were here to promote the upcoming anthology film, a behind-the-scenes cinematic retelling of BTS's journey, their solo paths, their silences, and triumphs. It was supposed to be a celebration, a closure. But Jungkook's body was already tensing, every muscle alert to a different kind of storm. A journalist stood and addressed the mic. "This question is for Jungkook. There was a lot of speculation following the live stream with Park Jimin last week. Fans noted the abrupt ending and emotional tension. Can you clarify what happened?" Namjoon leaned forward to intercept, the spokesperson role sliding back onto his shoulders. "That was an unplanned technical issue. Nothing more." Another reporter, less polite, pushed. "But Jimin hasn't been seen publicly since, not even on social media. Is he okay? Will he be attending today?" The silence was sharp. Jungkook could feel the heat of every flashbulb pointed at him like a firing squad. He opened his mouth to speak. And then the door at the back of the room opened. Jimin walked in, dressed in black. No makeup, hair unstyled, no smile, no PR gloss. Just raw, exposed Jimin. The man Jungkook had kissed in the rain in Tokyo and buried beneath 1,000 layers of silence. The room reacted in gasps and clicks. Flashes multiplied. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Jimin didn't falter. He walked slowly down the aisle, ignoring the stage, heading straight toward the mic stand at the center of the press pit. The PR manager's eyes widened in horror, but no one stopped him. He took the mic in his hands, looked at no one, looked at everyone. "My name is Park Jimin," he said, "and I'm tired of pretending I wasn't there that night." You could hear a pin drop. The publicist at the side had gone ghost white. The camera operators leaned in. Jungkook's breath caught. Jimin continued, voice trembling. "There was a night in Tokyo 3 years ago. Jungkook and I were close, too close. And we made a mistake." A gasp, murmurs, phones rising like a wave. Jungkook stood, but Jimin held up a hand without looking at him. "We didn't hurt anyone," Jimin went on. "We didn't betray the group or the fans, but we betrayed ourselves. We buried it, denied it. I ran away and Jungkook, he carried the weight of it alone." "Jimin," Jungkook said, stepping off the stage. "I'm not here to out anyone," Jimin said quickly, loudly. "This isn't a confession of love. It's a confession of truth. We've spent years pretending that our emotions didn't spill over, that our friendship didn't bleed into something deeper." Jungkook was at his side now, hands shaking. "Stop, please." Jimin turned to him then, eyes rimmed with unshed tears. "I can't keep living like it didn't happen." Jungkook's chest rose and fell, hard and fast. "You think this is bravery? You think dragging me into this storm in front of cameras and strangers is love?" Jimin flinched. "This isn't courage," Jungkook said, voice low and lethal. "It's guilt." And the room erupted. Security stepped in. The press was shouting questions. PR reps rushed forward. Taehyung stormed off stage. Yoongi followed. Namjoon stood frozen for a moment before moving to calm the chaos. But in the center of the maelstrom, Jimin and Jungkook stood locked in a storm of their own. "Do you hate me now?" Jimin whispered as security surrounded them. "I hate that I still love you," Jungkook spat. Then he turned and left. And the whole world watched him walk away. They weren't allowed to speak for 3 days. HYBE's crisis control team descended like smoke, swift, quiet, suffocating. All phones were collected, media passwords changed, and each member was assigned a legal liaison. Their dorm floor in Hanam was locked down. No one in, no one out. Jungkook paced. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten either, despite the untouched trays that appeared outside his door every few hours. His voice messages to his mother remained unsent. He'd typed and deleted one to Taehyung 5 times. The memory of Jimin at the microphone, saying those words, playing martyr in front of cameras, refused to stop replaying in his head. Every syllable haunted him. This isn't a confession of love. It's a confession of truth. Truth? The truth had been between them for years, unsaid, sacred, scarred. It had a shape, a rhythm, something private and sacred, and theirs. Until Jimin laid it bare beneath the spotlight. Now it was out in the open, dissected by strangers. Fan forums were in chaos. Half the world was writing essays trying to decode the meaning. The other half was either mourning or celebrating what they believed to be a coming-out story. But no one knew the truth. Not really. Not the tears. Not the betrayal. Not the voicemail Jungkook still hadn't deleted. And then there was the knock. A soft, familiar rhythm. 4 taps. Pause. 2 more. He didn't answer. The door opened anyway. Jimin stood there, hood up, dark circles under his eyes, face thinner than it had been just a week ago. He looked like he'd been carved out of regret. "Don't," Jungkook said, immediately turning away. "I wasn't going to apologize." "Good," Jungkook snapped. "Because I wouldn't accept it." Jimin shut the door behind him. Silence swelled between them. "I meant what I said," Jimin said after a long pause. "You had no right," Jungkook hissed, turning on him. "You dragged it into the light. You made it real for the world when it was barely something we'd come to terms with ourselves." "I didn't name you," Jimin said. "Kieter. I didn't out you. You didn't have to," Jungkook barked. "They saw my face. They saw us." He slammed his hand against the desk, sending an empty cup crashing to the floor. Jimin didn't flinch. "What did you want me to do? Keep protecting a lie?" "It wasn't a lie," Jungkook growled. "It was ours. Something we were figuring out. Something I was still trying to understand. You made it a headline." Jimin's voice dropped. "So what, you'd rather be hated in silence than loved in truth?" Jungkook stared at him, stunned. "That's what you think this is?" he said slowly. "You think the world is going to love us for this? They're already writing op-eds about how I used you or you manipulated me. They're choosing sides, dissecting our friendship like a crime scene. And you think that's love?" Jimin stepped forward. "I think truth is love. Then your truth is selfish." Jimin recoiled like he'd been slapped. The silence between them was jagged. Jungkook ran his fingers through his hair, shaking with fury. "Do you know what I had to go through after Tokyo? After you disappeared for 3 weeks? I had panic attacks every time I walked into a room and saw your empty chair. I thought I'd hallucinated it all. The rain, the kiss, the way your voice cracked when you said you loved me. I thought maybe I made it up. I wasn't ready," Jimin whispered. Jungkook looked at him, eyes glassy with something too deep for anger. "And I wasn't ready for you to leave." Jimin said nothing. A long, bitter pause. "I lost you once," Jungkook murmured. "And now you're giving them the power to take you away again." "No," Jimin said. "This time, I'm giving me the power to stay." Jungkook sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted. The fight drained from his limbs. "What do you want from me, Hyung?" he asked. Jimin sat beside him, not too close. "I want you to see me, really see me. Not the performer, not the PR risk, just me." Jungkook looked at him slowly, as if seeing him for the first time. The vulnerability, the terror, the love. "I do," Jungkook said. "I always have." The air shifted. They sat in silence, breaths sinking slowly, hearts finding rhythm. Then Jimin said the one thing Jungkook hadn't been ready for. "They're putting us on suspension." "What?" Jungkook blinked. "Management. Hybe. Effective immediately. 2 months. No appearances. No press. Nothing. Jungkook's mouth went dry. For what? For conflict of narrative. For disrupting team cohesion. For causing chaos. Jungkook stood again, furious. They can't do that. They just did. We didn't do anything wrong. We broke the illusion, Jimin said softly. That's what they care about. Jungkook stared at the wall, hands balled into fists. This is bullshit. I know. And the others? Namjoon's trying to fight it. Yoongi's pretending not to care. Hobi's worried sick. Taehyung, Jimin hesitated. He won't look at me. Jungkook exhaled sharply. Of course he won't. A pause. Do you think we broke it? Jimin asked. Us. All of it. Jungkook looked down. Then finally he said, No, I think it was already cracked. We just stopped taping it back together. Jimin nodded slowly, and for a moment there was peace. But peace never lasted long in their world. An emergency alert flashed on Jungkook's laptop. He opened it and froze. What is it? Jimin asked. Jungkook turned the screen. It was a leaked video. From the dressing room, minutes before the press conference. Grainy but clear enough. Someone had planted a hidden camera. In the footage, Jungkook and Namjoon were talking. You're not obligated to protect him anymore, Namjoon had said. You owe it to yourself to move on. I'm not protecting him, Jungkook had answered. I'm protecting us. Now it was public. The internet would feast. Jimin stepped back, hurt flashing through his face. You said that? I didn't know they were recording. You said you were protecting us. Us. But you told me I was selfish. You made me think I ruined everything. I was scared. And I wasn't? Jungkook reached for him, but Jimin stepped away. I can't do this again, Jimin said. I can't keep opening my heart only for it to be twisted into something ugly. Hyung don't. Jimin's eyes were wet. You don't get to call me that right now. The door clicked shut behind him. And this time, Jungkook didn't chase after him. Taehyung didn't knock. The door flew open just after midnight, the lock bouncing off the frame with a metallic crack, and Jungkook looked up from the floor where he'd been sitting for hours in the dark. I was wondering when you'd come, Jungkook said, voice dull. Taehyung stepped into the room like he was stepping into a war zone. I watched the clip, he said, tone clipped. You and Namjoon. The hidden camera. Jungkook stood slowly, wiping his palms on his sweatpants. You know I didn't know I was being filmed. Doesn't matter. It does to me. It doesn't to Jimin. That made Jungkook flinch. Taehyung didn't stop. You let him walk into that conference like a lamb to slaughter. You stood there and let him say everything, and then you burned him in front of the world. Now he looks like the delusional one. And you're the poor guy caught in his emotional spiral. That's the narrative now. Jungkook stared at him. Do you think I wanted that? I think you didn't stop it. He ambushed me. He gave you the only thing he had left, Taehyung shouted. The truth. His truth. Do you know how rare that is in our world? Do you know how much guts it takes to take the mask off and say, here, this is what I feel. This is what broke me. And you punished him for it. Jungkook stepped forward, eyes blazing. You think I didn't want to tell the truth too? I couldn't breathe when he said those things. Not because I didn't believe them, but because I did. And because I knew the second it came out of his mouth, we were done. Not just him and me. All of us. The 7. The legacy. Gone. Then you should have stood beside him while it burned, Taehyung said coldly. Instead, you left him to the flames. Jungkook's throat tightened. I was trying to protect him. No, Taehyung said. You were trying to protect yourself. The silence was thick, hostile, agonizing. Then Taehyung's expression softened, just slightly. I'm not saying he was right to spring it on you. He wasn't. It was reckless. But maybe he just reached a point where the lie hurt more than the fallout. Jungkook looked away. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, Taehyung added, voice gentler now. Not once. Not even when he thought no one was watching. Jungkook closed his eyes. I'm not asking you to fix it, Taehyung said, backing toward the door. I'm just telling you this. You broke something in him when you didn't choose him back. And I don't think it's something he'll let you near again. After Taehyung left, Jungkook stood in the center of the room like a man unraveling. He grabbed his phone and finally opened the voicemail. Jimin's voice crackled softly through the speaker. I don't know why I'm leaving this. You'll probably delete it. But I can't sleep and I keep hearing the way you said my name that night. Like it meant something more. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it was the rain. Or the whiskey. But I felt something. And I think you did too. And maybe tomorrow we'll pretend none of it happened. But just for tonight, I wanted to say, I'm glad it was you. Jungkook played it again. And again. He didn't sleep. The next morning, the statement was released, officially from HYBE. Due to internal conflict and disruption of planned narratives, Jungkook and Jimin will enter a temporary hiatus from promotional activities effective immediately. We ask fans to respect their privacy during this time. The internet exploded. Speculation, fan wars, theories, campaigns to defend Jimin, hashtags demanding Jungkook speak. But neither of them went online. Instead, Jungkook found himself at the studio at 3 a.m., staring at an empty vocal booth, wondering when music stopped being a refuge. He didn't expect the door to open, or for Jimin to walk in. They stared at each other, neither speaking. I figured you'd be here, Jimin said at last. Couldn't sleep, Jungkook replied. Jimin walked past him, sat at the piano, and began playing something soft, aimless. His fingers hesitated over the keys, like they forgot how to move. I used to write you songs, he said. Jungkook nodded. I used to listen to them on repeat. A pause. I watched the leaked clip, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook's stomach dropped. I heard what you said. I didn't mean… No, Jimin interrupted. You did, and it's okay. You were trying to make sense of it. So was I. Jungkook leaned against the wall, arms crossed tightly. I didn't want to lose you. Then why did you make me feel like I was a mistake? I don't know, Jungkook whispered. I think I thought if I didn't acknowledge it, maybe it wouldn't fall apart. It already had. Another long silence. Jimin looked at him. I meant what I said at the press conference. About the truth. About loving you. I know. I don't regret it. Jungkook stepped forward. I do, he said. Not the love, but the silence after. That I didn't fight for it. That I let you walk away in Tokyo. That I let you carry the shame alone. Jimin's expression cracked just slightly. I'm scared, Jungkook admitted. Me too. Do you still want this? Jungkook asked. Jimin looked up. Want what? This, Jungkook whispered. Us. Jimin stood. He walked toward him. Every step careful, deliberate. Then he reached out, fingers brushing Jungkook's. Not if it's another secret. Jungkook nodded slowly. Then we tell the truth, he said. Even if it costs us everything? Jungkook met his gaze. We already paid the price. Let's at least own what it bought us. They stood there in silence, the studio around them heavy with unspoken melodies. And finally, Jungkook leaned in. Not in desperation, but in choice. A kiss, quiet, steady. Not like Tokyo rushed, wet, panicked, but real. And this time, no one ran. To be continued in part 4. Ready to continue? In the next part, the company retaliates, the fandom fractures, and the group is forced to reckon with what truth really means in an industry that thrives on illusion. Let me know, and I'll keep building the next chapters until we reach your full-length episode. Anda bilang, lanjutkan episode selanjutnya dengan episode yang lebih panjang, 10.000 kata atau lebih banyak perkapan panas, seru tegang, kontroversial, kejutan dan emosional, dan berikan saya narasi saja dalam bahasa Inggris tanpa menggunakan poin-poin. ChatGPT Belang. Here is episode 4, The Things We Swore to Forget. Part 4, continuing the emotionally and politically charged narrative. The tension between truth and survival in the industry begins to implode, leading to inter-group confrontations, legal ultimatums, fan uprisings, and devastating revelations. We're continuing to build toward the full 10, Zero Yaon, word arc, and this is the next major installment. Episode 4, The Things We Swore to Forget. Part 4, 2 days after the kiss in the studio, the company sent lawyers instead of managers. Jungkook knew the second he walked into the conference room that something had changed. The air was colder, the smiles were gone. No one handed out bottled water or made polite jokes about cleaning things up. They weren't here to console, they were here to contain. The room was mostly glass and concrete high-rise. Downtown Seoul, sterile as a surgical room. Namjoon was already there, sitting in the corner with his arms crossed, and a look that said he'd fought this conversation before Jungkook even arrived. The legal team spoke first. 3 of them, all dressed in grays and navy, each carrying folders thick with printed posts, screenshots, headlines, timelines. One of them, an older woman with silver hair pulled tightly back, began without introduction. "This is not sustainable," she said. "We cannot support a narrative that endangers brand equity, fractures fan bases, and invites public speculation of internal romantic relationships, especially between 2 members." Jungkook said nothing. The woman continued, placing a thick packet in front of him. "This is a compliance directive. If you and Jimin wish to remain under the label, you will cease all direct engagement, online or offline, including no." Jungkook said. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "No," he repeated. "If that's the condition, I'm out." The table fell silent. Namjoon's expression didn't change, but his foot shifted. That meant something. His tells were always subtle. Another lawyer leaned forward. "Jungkook, see, please understand, this is not punishment. This is preservation. Of you, of your career, of BTS. I'm not interested in preserving a lie," Jungkook said calmly. "You won't survive this," the woman said. "You think the internet will side with you, but they turn fast. Love today, hate tomorrow. You've already lost contracts. Sponsors are pulling out. And if Jimin follows you down this path—" "He already did," Jungkook said. "Before any of you gave us permission." She narrowed her eyes. "You love him. I didn't ask for your blessing." "And what happens when it ends?" she asked. "When you burn out or fight or fall apart, what happens to the group then?" Namjoon spoke for the first time. "You don't ask that question when they date women." The room turned. Namjoon stood. "You didn't ask me that when I dated. You didn't ask Hobie that. You didn't drag in a legal team when Tae held hands with someone in France. But you do this now. Why? Because it doesn't fit the story? Or because it doesn't fit your comfort?" "This is different," the woman said, defensive now. "You're right," Namjoon said. "It's honest." Jungkook looked at him. Something unspoken passed between them. The third lawyer finally opened his folder. "Be that as it may," he said softer. "There is an NDA clause in all of your contracts regarding internal relationship disclosures, romantic, sexual, or otherwise. Jimin has already been cited. If you do not comply, there will be a financial penalty." "Fine," Jungkook said. "Take the money. You'll lose your endorsements. Then I lose them. You'll fracture the group." Jungkook looked directly at the woman. "Then the group was weaker than I thought." She closed the folder slowly. "We'll give you 48 hours. When they left, the silence cracked like dry glass. Namjoon finally exhaled. "You really just torched the house." Jungkook sat back in the chair. "It was already on fire." Namjoon nodded, jaw tight. "You're not wrong, but this doesn't end with paperwork. I know. They'll come after him harder now." Jungkook stared out the window. Seoul blinked below like a machine too big to feel anything. "Then I'll stand in the way." Namjoon put a hand on his shoulder. "You'll need backup." Later that night, Jimin showed up without calling. His eyes were red, his coat soaked, his fingers shaking. Jungkook let him in. No words. Jimin pulled off his coat and said, "They called my parents." Jungkook froze. "They told them I was endangering my legacy," Jimin said. "That if they didn't intervene, I might lose everything." He sat down hard on the couch. "My mom cried. My dad said." He said I was selfish. Jungkook sat beside him slowly. "I wanted to tell them it wasn't about being in love with a man," Jimin whispered. "It was about being in love with you." Jungkook reached for his hand. Jimin let him. "I'm scared," Jimin said. "Not of what the world thinks. I've been hated before. But I'm scared I broke something I can't fix." "You didn't break it," Jungkook said. "You just stopped pretending." Jimin leaned against him, and for a while, they just breathed. But peace never held. At dawn, a trending tag exploded. Jimin lies to army. It linked to a deep-fake, heavily edited clips of past interviews, twisted audio, blurred footage. The implication? That Jimin had manipulated Jungkook, that he'd fabricated the Tokyo story for attention, that he was unstable. Jungkook saw it just before Jimin did. By the time he looked over, Jimin was already trembling. "It's everywhere," he whispered. "None of it's real. They believe it. Then we tell the truth, Jungkook said. All of it. And this time, they did. They sat down. No stylists, no handlers, no scripts, just a single phone on a tripod. Jungkook leaned into the mic. This is not a scandal, he said. This is not drama. This is not betrayal. This is love. Jimin looked at the camera. And we're done pretending it didn't happen. It started with silence. Not the charged, suffocating kind that had haunted their live stream, or the tense silence of waiting backstage. This one was hollow. Still, the kind that descends right before a building falls, or after it has already crumbled and the dust hasn't settled yet. Jungkook stood alone in the rehearsal room, a place that once echoed with 7 voices harmonizing, laughing, arguing, creating. Now, the mirrors reflected just him drenched in sweat, shirt clinging to his skin, breath shallow from running the full chorus of a song they hadn't performed in over a year. Jimin hadn't come. He always came. Even when he wasn't scheduled, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. But not tonight. The door creaked behind him. He didn't turn. I thought you wouldn't show, he said. Jimin's voice came softly. I almost didn't. He stepped into the light, hoodie pulled low, eyes rimmed red. Jungkook turned slowly, chest rising and falling. They're saying we can't debut together. I know. They want us to record separate statements for Weverse. I said no. Jungkook exhaled. His voice was hollow. They offered me a solo documentary, international distribution. Said I'd be the face of global youth if I dropped the controversy. What did you say? Jungkook looked him in the eye. I said I'd rather disappear. Jimin blinked. They offered me a spot on the board. Hybe Japan. Full creative control. Jungkook laughed without humor. All it takes is pretending we never loved each other. Jimin stepped closer, cautiously. I'm tired, Kook. I know. They're not just breaking us, Jimin said. They're breaking everything we fought for, everything we built with them. Jungkook walked to the mirror, pressing his forehead against it. I can't sing if I have to lie through it. Jimin stood beside him, their reflections blurry in the condensation. They think we're replaceable. They forget who bled for this stage. The silence stretched again. I miss them, Jimin whispered. Yoongi, Hobi, Tai, Jinyoung, even Namjoon, though he won't look at me the same now. Jungkook didn't answer. Jimin's voice cracked. Do you think we ruined it? No, Jungkook said quietly. I think we revealed it. Jimin turned toward him. What now? Jungkook looked at him through the mirror. Do we end it? No, Jimin said immediately, voice shaking. Not like this. Not with shame. Not on their terms. We can't fix it, but we can choose how it ends. Jungkook finally turned to face him. Together, if it still means something to you. Jungkook reached into his bag and pulled out a white envelope. Inside were 7 handwritten letters, 1 for each member. Unsent. I've rewritten these 100 times, he said, trying to make the ending less ugly. Jimin took the envelope, opened it slowly, read the name on the top letter, Taehyung. His eyes burned. They'll never forgive us, he whispered. Then we forgive each other, Jungkook said. That's how we survive it. Jimin closed his eyes. Then he stepped forward and pulled Jungkook into a hug so tight. It broke something open. It was messy. Their foreheads bumping. Their breathing uneven. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't perfect. But it was everything they had left. The next day, they walked into the boardroom hand in hand. All 7 were present. Namjoon, Taehyung, Yoongi, Jin, flown in from military leave. Hobi, his smile dim but present. No managers, no legal reps. Just them. Jungkook bowed, Jimin bowed, and then they sat. Yoongi spoke first. You two know what you did. Jimin nodded. We do. You broke trust, Taehyung added. Not by loving each other, but by shutting us out. Jungkook's voice was quiet. We were ashamed. You made it harder, Hobi said. For all of us. You made us lie. You forced us to choose sides we never wanted to stand on. Jimin's hand trembled under the table. Namjoon finally looked up. But you told the truth. Silence again. Then Jin, old, tired, impossibly kind, leaned forward. So what do you want? Jungkook looked at Jimin. Jimin looked back. And then, together, they said, to sing one last time, as BTS, as Seven, with no masks. The room didn't answer right away. Then Yoongi leaned back and exhaled. One concert. One. Taehyung's voice cracked slightly. If you're going down, we go with you. Jungkook's breath left his chest. Jimin blinked quickly. And in that room, stripped of stage lights, social media, and stadium noise, they found each other again. The last concert was called The Truth, Pangtane Majimak Pam, the last night of Bulletproof. They announced it with no press campaign, no interviews, no fan service, just a single message across their shared page. No more stories, just the truth. See you soon. Tickets sold out in 3 minutes. That night, under the bruised purple lights of the Jamsil Stadium, they didn't wear costumes. They didn't dance. They stood on a stripped-down stage, microphones in hand, voices raw, unrehearsed, unfiltered. Jimin sang like he was setting fire to every lie that had ever choked him. Jungkook sang like he didn't care who was still listening. When they sang The Truth Untold, the stadium was silent. When they sang Spring Day, fans cried. When the final notes of Epiphany faded, Jin stepped forward. And for the first time, he said what no idol was allowed to say. You were never fans. You were family. And he gestured to Jungkook and Jimin, they loved honestly. That's all we ever asked of you. So now, we ask you for the same. There was no encore. They bowed, long, deep, without music, and walked off stage, hand in hand. They didn't disband. They didn't return. The group faded like a legend whispered in the streets, remembered in old footage, tattooed across the hearts of millions. Jungkook and Jimin moved to a small town near Jeju. They grew older, grew quiet. Sometimes fans saw them shopping together. Sometimes they held hands in public. Sometimes they said nothing at all. But always, they were together. And that, finally, was enough.